Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
And this is week 9 of Fantasy Football 2022.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
We are not kicking off with Thursday Night Football. We're actually going to talk about some of the players that got moved around in the NFL this week via trade. We're going to talk about their impact on fantasy, their impact in the NFL, on the teams they're going to and the teams they left behind. And we're going to start with someone near and dear to our heart right now because as Jacksonville Jaguars fans, me and Rob are very excited about the acquisition of Calvin Ridley. You remember that guy? It's kind of a Pete Rose situation going on right now. But this is someone we're following very closely, and I think this is probably the biggest trade of the season right now. Rob, I want to hear your thoughts, just what you think it does for the Falcons, what you think it does for the Jags, and if you have any concerns about the fact that he's suspended for the rest of the season and won't even step on the field till next year.
Honest to goodness, I think this is the biggest trade the Jaguars have ever made at the trade deadline, and I absolutely love that Calvin Ridley is on our team. We have been preaching through various podcasts that the Jacksonville Jaguars, and especially Trevor Lawrence, needed a burner receiver. Yes, we do not get him for this year, but he has an $11 million option for pickup for next year, and there's no reason we didn't just trade for this guy to not get him on the team and to not extend him. This is exactly who we needed. He has been successful in the NFL. Yes, he hasn't played a year and a half, but, glass being half full, less mileage on his knees, ankles, feet, doesn't matter. Great get for the Jaguars. I am so excited for Calvin Ridley to be a part of Jacksonville. This is the guy that is going to make Trevor Lawrence the better thrower that he will be, because he now has a burner that can go downfield, and Trevor Lawrence can show off his huge arm.
I'm very excited because, guys, he's 1% rostered on ESPN. That's insane. I mean, I actually thought he was still on little Joey's team, Rob. I was assuming that he was just kind of stashed for the future because he was just going through a suspension. It's not like he was useless as a player, and he blew up a couple of years ago. So right now, I would urge anybody, especially in keeper and dynasty leagues, just go out there real quick, type in his name, see if he's on a roster, and switch somebody out for him. Now, here's an interesting name because it's kind of revolving around other names. Nyheim Hines from the Colts. Rob, I got to say, I am starting to feel really good about trading away Jonathan Taylor for Cooper Kupp. And now that we're seeing Nyheim Hines go over to the Bills, the landscape on the Colts where they're going to have to rely on Deion Jackson and Jordan Wilkins. They get Zack Moss from the Bills, but do you think that Zack Moss is going to make an impact right away? And I mean, even if he does, if he gets onto the field for the first game, is he going to be taking more than 10% of snaps? I want to hear your thoughts because you actually picked up Nyheim Hines in our keeper. So tell me your thought process here about why you think it's time to put Nyheim Hines on a roster as opposed to the times he's been a great pass catcher on the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Nyheim Hines essentially hits Pater by going to a team who has, as Ryan and I have talked about many a times, the best quarterback, quite possibly the best player in the NFL right now. And the Bills, what do they love to do? They love throwing the ball. And guess what Nyheim loves to do? Catch footballs. This is a change of pace back. He's a good receiving running back. Since 2018, which was his rookie year, he is 5th in reception yards per running back. And ahead of him are guys like Eckler, CMC, Alvin Kamara, and James White, surprisingly enough. But Nyheim Hines, if you're talking about an immediate impact, Hines is the guy through everything that trade involved. Hines is now the guy. I'm not saying plug this dude as an RB1, RB2, but a flex option. It's the Bills offense, people. They didn't trade for him not to play. He's a veteran presence, the perfect fit for the Bills, and quite possibly could be a perfect fit for your fantasy team going forward, especially now that we're looking at playoffs here soon.
Yeah, and with Jonathan Taylor nursing the same injury again, this is a great time to go out on the waivers and look for Deion Jackson. I think he's going to be handling the bulk of the carries. He's not quite at 4 yards per carry, and I'm not saying that he's going to have another, 10 reception game like last time he took over the reins, but definitely worth thinking about with Nyheim Hines out of town. This isn't a this week trade. Robbie Anderson went over to the Cardinals, right? So now we're looking at DJ Moore as the wide receiver 1, and he's really coming back into wide receiver 1 status very quickly. I was very concerned about him and thought he might be droppable at some point, but here's a name that kind of rang some nostalgia for me. In one of my deep dynasty leagues that I have since left, where 250 players are off the board at any given time, I did draft Terrace Marshall Jr. in a rookie draft and was kind of excited to stash him. he has been a letdown, not really getting onto the field to even try and produce over the past few seasons. I saw you recently acquired him in ESPN, so it's interesting. All these trades moving around, it seems to actually affect our fantasy landscape in the league as these moves are just coming one right after the other. What are you seeing in him as the wide receiver 2 in Carolina, with their quarterback situation being unclear once Baker Mayfield gets to full health and returns?
Yeah, but I mean, you said it yourself, DJ Moore's now getting fed the ball. And, there's going to need to be a compliment, and I think the compliment right now is going to be Terrace Marshall. He's a big, able body with great hands coming out of LSU. They believed he dropped to the second round for some really weird reason. I don't know, it's just whatever. There's always something. But this guy just last week, first time essentially becoming a full-time role, 4 for 9, 87 yards. That's pretty nice. I mean, yeah, he dropped 5 passes, give the guys a little bit of a break, but this Carolina team might have just found its identity somehow, the way that Seattle did with Geno Smith, and now they look like a pass-heavy team. And DJ Moore is now coming out of that shell. I think Terrace Marshall is the next dude right behind him, coincidentally being enough, the wide receiver 2. The way kind of Rondale Moore has kind of become what he's become out in Arizona, Terrace Marshall's the next guy who I think after another big week in week 9, this guy might be 50% owned come next waiver period.
Let's circle back real quick, talk about next guy, Zack Moss, who was a fallout from the last trade with Nyheim Hines and everything. It's interesting that he's really young. He was drafted in a lot of dynasty leagues as an up-and-coming stash. The guy is not as big as I actually thought he was a few years ago when he was coming into the league. I went and looked up a little bit. I mean, I knew he was like a second, third rounder, and he was third round. And, came out of Utah and everything. The dude is only 5'9" and 205 pounds. I thought he was a little bit bigger and more of a bruiser. He hasn't really produced at all in the NFL, but to be honest, when he does get the ball, he's got 10 total touchdowns, over 1,200 yards from scrimmage, and he averages 4.1 yards a carry. Guys, Rashad Bateman's going to miss the remainder of the season with foot surgery, so just throwing that out there as we post this before Thursday Night Football. Rob, do you think Zack Moss is going to have any value at all going over to Indy?
No, and the reason I think that is if he couldn't hack it with the superior Bills offense, there had to be something that they saw in him going, we are in win-now mode again, certainly back to Nyheim Hines, and that's a great trade-off. Colts can give him a shot, sure, but like you said, he's a little undersized. Colts are going to be in dire need of a quarterback. Yet again, people, this is insanity what's going on in Indianapolis. I mean, just absolute catastrophe of a team. I mean, I thought they were going to win outright. I thought they were going to take our division. I thought they were better than the Tennessee Derrick Henrys. The Jags, of course, have now looked flat. Houston's not that good. Miles Sanders will more than likely have over 200 yards simply because they traded him recently. And Houston's rush defense, I think, is the worst in the league. And, there's nobody else really that scares me. Who am I missing? The Colts, the Jags, the Tennessee Derrick Henrys, and, Houston Texans. No, I got it. So I think this is a mess going forward. But I hope so. He was supposed to be at the complimentary back to Devin Singletary, who, again, I don't think that's that great of a quarterback, a running back. I'm really not going to be shocked if Hines is the go-to guy. Yeah,
and in Buffalo, they're obviously just putting as many pass-catching weapons around Josh Allen as possible because of the way that offense runs. So, honestly, I think the big takeaway from this, guys, is, again, like I was saying, it looks like Jonathan Taylor just got ruled out. He wasn't present for today's practice. So not really officially ruled out, but he's not going to play. And that means you got to grab Deion Jackson because I doubt Zack Moss is going to be prepared to take on a heavy workload going to a new team. And speaking of new teams, we thought this guy was going to be gone. But Cam Akers returns to Rams practice. Here's the thing. I dropped him in any redraft leagues. I would not drop him in a dynasty league. I really wouldn't yet. Now, those guys that are kind of troublemakers, I don't like. But we don't know if he is. Like I always preach, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if Akers is unhappy with not having a heavy workhorse role, if he thinks that McVay just doesn't like him. There's all kinds of things that could be going on there. I really want the Jaguars to pursue this guy. I thought he was going to get shipped out of the Rams. I think Etienne needs a different style of back to complement him, and the Jaguars could use that a lot. I don't know if Cam Akers is happy being a change of pace running back. What do you see in the next, I want to know, just in the next 4 weeks, do you think Cam Akers has any type of 10-point game in the slightest?
Yes. I went into this season screaming about Cam Akers. I drafted this
We all
kid
did.
everywhere. He's rotting on my bench, yeah. But will Cam Akers stop Cam Akering? And that's the ultimate question. But this is what I have to say. The Rams didn't just trade him. And why do you think that is? And I, in my mind, think that's because Stafford is struggling so mightily right now. And the Rams need to establish a run game. And what's there to lose now at this point in the season than go, you know what? This is what, Cam Akers' third year? The guy knows the playbook in and out. He has to at this point. Let the freaking, just like with the Jags with ETN, just feed the dude the rock and let's see what the hell happens. This dude's motivated. Like, he's coming back to the team. He's practicing today for a reason. And you know what that reason is, dude? Exactly like when we circle back to Calvin Ridley. These guys want to get paid. And they know a day's coming when it's like, well, you gave up on the team, and nobody's going to want to sign you. You know, I remember Melvin Gordon, Le'Veon Bell. Look how those catastrophes worked out. Cam Akers is a young enough kid, just like Calvin Ridley. They're smart. They know they want the money. Now they just have to produce. And I think I will go, not this week, but I think we'll see improvement. I say within the next 2 weeks, definitely 3, Cam Akers has started in every league he is being rostered, which I think ultimately needs to be 99. Darrell Henderson Jr. is not the answer, and the Rams know that, and that's why they didn't trade Cam Akers. He's way too talented.
Right, and I don't think anybody's going to really get anything out of Ronnie Rivers, but Kyron Williams is not activated. This 21-day window is going to be to try and get him kind of acclimated to the playbook. So, guys, again, Kyron Williams may still be out there on your waiver wires for keeper leagues. He's a must-add right now. Just another quick news outlet. Michael Thomas is out for the season. Going to have toe surgery and be put on the IR.
Oh, my
Yeah,
gosh.
so say bye to that guy one more time. It was a great late draft steal, but obviously it didn't work out. TJ Hawkinson just went to the Vikings. This I just want to hear you straight up tell me, does his value go up or down on the Vikings with Kirk Cousins?
I'm going just straight right down the fence. I'm not taking a side because I think there are way too many mouths to be fed in Minnesota. I mean, anytime you looked with Kirk Cousins and Irv Smith Jr. now being out for the rest of the season, hence why they made this trade, it was always in the red zone. I mean, did Irv Smith ever top like 50 yards?
Yeah, I mean, people have been
He's
bitching
gonna
about
be
this guy for
goal
years.
line, touchdown dependent, and guess what? There's a guy named Justin Jefferson on that freaking team.
Yeah.
Adam Thielen's back, and again, I'm still not giving up on KJ Osborne, who I really think is a pretty solid little receiver. There's too many mouths, and then even then, Kirk Cousins ain't going to be looking towards TJ Hawkinson when the Vikings are down any game. They're, again, going to be looking at their two massive weapons. I just say it's right down the middle. I don't think there's much change. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you see?
I mean, I've never owned Hawkinson. He's one of those guys I kind of follow. But, like, when you don't ever own him on a team for one reason or another, you start to, you don't spend as much time following these guys. And right now, I know he can put up low floors, high ceilings. I think he's obviously the second option behind Amon-Ra St. Brown most of the time. So going over the Vikings, you're right. I think, maybe third in the pecking order and just kind of stays the same. He's a good tight end. Brock Wright is their next guy up. Don't know where the fuck that is. He has a concussion, will not be playing. But the third option, James Mitchell, may be the guy getting the snaps. If you are super desperate, all your tight ends are dead. You got Kittle and Freiermuth on the same week. I don't know. Maybe you talk about James fucking Mitchell. Chase Claypool goes over to the Bears and kind of a late odd after trading Roquan Smith, tornado here. And it's, I'm not sure exactly what the Bears were looking to do, but obviously they're putting some weapons around Justin Fields. So this is going to have an impact on Darnell Mooney, probably in a good way, and maybe give Fields that boost for the rest of the season. I was definitely looking at Fields right before that last waiver claim. Had COVID, forgot to put in the claim, but I'm with you if you think it. I think Fields is going up, and he's a running quarterback. I've talked about this before. I do see glimmer of hope. Sometimes I think he looks a little better than Trevor Lawrence. He just doesn't have the weapons around him right now, and that's what Claypool does. And I think Fields is somebody to look at, just like we used to look at Jalen Hurts and speculate, because Fields has a much better pedigree than Hurts, and he's sitting out on the waiver wire. And he's not even, Hurts needed a couple seasons to become a second-round guy that became a star. Fields is going to come right into the league and do something, we all thought. So, this looks good for him going forward.
Yeah, I really do. I actually thought this was a pretty solid deal. It gets Claypool out of Pittsburgh, who has too many mouths to feed, not an O-line or a quarterback who knows how to throw a touchdown just yet, but it's coming. The Bears are rebuilding. I do agree with you with the Darnell Mooney thing. I think you got to have a wide receiver one. You have to have a wide receiver two. That is why, again, going back to Calvin Ridley, that's why I love him, because Christian Kirk now becomes the wide receiver two that he is, not a wide receiver one. Now DJ Moore, as they continue to throw the ball more in Carolina, now here comes Terrace Marshall, and that's exactly what I see with Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, and then again, I'm going to keep pushing this narrative that Khalil Herbert is going to be like a top 10 running back next year. It's so, I don't understand what Chicago's doing outside of maybe just like letting Jordan Montgomery go out into the fields, asking about
David Montgomery, yeah.
But like this Bears, they always do that, so sorry.
Yeah.
But this Bears team's close, the way that I think the Jags are close, man. They really are, they're accumulating the right players.
Yeah, you definitely, I have PTSD from owning Jordan Howard, so every time you say that shit, I get chills down my spine. Chase Edmonds, Jeff Wilson Jr., Happy Gilmore for Shooter McGavin here. What do you think about that?
Gold jacket, green jacket.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. All right, let's just, guys, Chase Edmonds, Jeff Wilson Jr., these are dudes you plugged in. Chase Edmonds is probably my biggest bust call ever. I do apologize for that one. I really thought that was going to be a draft steal this year. And I don't see any difference with him moving. I don't see Jeff Wilson Jr. Jeff Wilson, I can't help but laugh. I was telling you, I saw that quote where he's like, San Francisco has the best running back room in the NFL. I'm like, you're not going to think that in a week, motherfucker. This dude just took any chance of you having a job. So thank God he goes to the Dolphins, where he's still going to get some money. Rob, what the fuck are the Packers doing? As we close out this podcast, stop talking about the trades. What's going on here? They couldn't get Claypool. What's happening?
That's insane. I know. I just still can't believe Brandon Cooks is available. I mean, why?
Yeah. Brandon Cooks sitting out tonight.
How many times do we have to talk about it? Oh yeah. Tell them about why.
Yeah, but Cooks wants out of Houston, so you think that Aaron Rodgers would want that guy to come over to Green Bay for at least one fucking year while they try to save their season. I don't know.
They totally Deshaun Watson'd him.
Oh, God,
Houston's just a mess.
No lie. If you want to massage your ego, no pun intended, go pick up Deshaun Watson right now in your redraft leagues. He could be a season winner for some people that are having trouble at the quarterback position, especially you guys that drafted Trey Lance. All right, so moving on to our last talking point here is simply going to be a quick preview of the Thursday night game tonight. So we didn't kick off with Thursday Night Football, but we're going to end with it real quick. Jalen Hurts, what did I fucking say 2 years ago?
Woo!
Tell
us how right you were.
I'm looking here. He's top 5 right now, projected for 22.2 points. He is the leading candidate for MVP in the NFL right now, which I find amazing because normally they're going to go with the jack-off choice, which is most people are going to look at Mahomes and Josh Allen. And again, it's usually a QB. So this isn't totally shocking, but to me, it's like, all right, they're going after Hurts because he's actually making a huge difference to the Eagles. And I can't remember some of the fucking knuckleheads that played instead of Hurts in that season when Wentz was on his way out. Rob, those were some of our first podcasts. We're talking about how Wentz should take a back seat and Hurts should be developed. And it's more because of the fantasy excitement. I was like, I don't think this guy's going to be Marino, but he's different. He's going to change the game. That first podcast I talked about Jalen Hurts, where I'm like, he's the next breakout fantasy star. I said 30 touchdowns. He could get 30 touchdowns this year. He got 26. Right now, he's on pace for 27. So this guy is going to put up 27 in the air and on the ground every fucking year, and he's going to get you 4,000 or 5,000 yards in different ways. He's been incredible. I loved seeing that 4 TD game. I hate to tell people this, though, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of that going on all the time. But tonight could be different. I mean, what are you seeing in this matchup as you trade away, speaking of trades, Miles Sanders this week in a big package to get Austin Eckler? What are you seeing with Houston's defense? Like, what's Jalen Hurts doing tonight? You think he's going to take a back seat and they're going to go with a running game? Or do you think Jalen Hurts puts up another 20-point performance?
I think it's going to be no holds barred on the ground again. That's again, Houston's rush defense, I think, again, is the worst. Their corners are actually pretty good, ironically enough. I think I had heard something today that Houston has only allowed 2 touchdowns through the air. So one has to think this season, one has to think that, Philly's prepared for that. You're going to see a lot of hurt scrambles, a lot of Miles Sanders, probably some Kenneth Gainwell later on. Please just cut Boston Scott so I don't ever have to talk his name ever again. It's so obnoxious. I think the Eagles, as you had said, I think they're destined for Super Bowl against the Bills. I think that's what we're looking at. Their defense has been top 2 in ESPN, as we were just talking about earlier, Ryan. A.J. Brown has been probably the best trade that was made from during the offseason with all that craziness. And Devonta Smith is a great wide receiver, too. Hey, get me a couple touchdowns tonight, buddy. I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And fly, Eagles, fly.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about it. Jalen Hurts does spread the ball around, guys. That Eagles offense does spread the ball around. You can get points out of Hurts. You can get points out of Devonta Smith. You can get points out of A.J. Brown, Miles Sanders, Dallas Goedert. It's just not going to all happen every single week. And I do agree with Rob. This could be one of those nights that Hurts is really kind of putting up more like 16. And he's still an MVP. This guy's a field general. Go through our former catalog of videos. You can hear us talking about Jalen Hurts years ago. Going forward at this season, we were talking about Bills-Eagles Super Bowl probably earlier than everybody else was. Although, I did hear some rumblings that maybe Vegas was having a lot of, betting odds on the dark horse Eagles. Regardless, it just seems like it's the perfect storm right now. Jalen Hurts is really becoming that must-start quarterback for me that I've always wanted on my keeper team. So I dropped Kenny Pickett for now. If Kenny Pickett turns into a thing, whatever. I feel like I can roll with Jalen Hurts for a few years and just have a guy for the bye weeks. Once again, guys, that was Fantasy R&R with Rob and Ryan. We will see you next time.